responsible for women and gender equity and gender equality, excuse me. Pam and I had this discussion last year, and I'm glad we're having it again, and that is on the Purple Ribbon campaign. Pam, how are you?
Good morning, Tim. And you're right. We had this conversation last year. It's unfortunate that I think we're
we got to have it again. Yeah,
we're going to be having these conversations for the rest of time. Well, but that said, it's important to work on initiatives such as the Purple Ribbon campaign, which is a campaign of 16 days of awareness, creating awareness, of course, to ultimately prevent and eradicate gender-based violence. And so I hosted a ceremony this past Friday, actually, at the House of Assembly in partnership with the Hibbs family. And you may remember, of course, Debbie and Philip Hibbs of CBS. They lost their daughter, Julianne, and her fiancé to domestic violence. It was the worst outcome, obviously. She was killed. Her life was taken, as was her fiancé, by an ex-partner. And, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other families that were there, the family of Courtney Lake, her mom. Yeah. I mean, these people they live this every day. And, I mean,
I don't know how you ever recover from it.
I don't think we do.
Child in circumstances like that makes it even worse. Sorry, go ahead, Pam.
But you're right, though, and I mean it's a perfect storm, and I hate to use that term, but I mean what we're seeing, the effects of the impact of COVID, we're seeing inflation, and it's impacting our globe, across our country, of course, and province, and the world for that matter. But and where I come into play here, of course, I work in partnership with my colleague, Minister John Abbott, who's responsible for children, senior social development, and his budget and his mandate is to indeed oversee transition homes, Newfoundland Labrador Housing Corporation, and shelters. I come into play with the prevention of gender-based violence and violence prevention, and I've got some updates that I want to provide listeners. And I also heard some previous calls, so just to provide some.
You got about 3 or 4 minutes, Pam. So go ahead.
From accuracy. Okay, well, the latest, of course, $3.2 million in my budget for the Minister for Women and Gender Equality in my office goes to violence prevention. And we work in partnership with community stakeholders of about 23 organizations across Newfoundland and Labrador that are on the front lines helping victims and people to provide these resources for the people who need it the most. I also want to say the violence prevention plan that was mentioned earlier today in the show, 94% of those initiatives, 64 calls to action, have been implemented. We've made some significant legislative changes as a result of that when our government have taken office, with, for example, the Labour Standards Act, which provides days of it forgives a lease, if you will. So if someone is escaping domestic violence, there's no penalization. Also, the Landlord Tenancies Act, that one, labor standards, days leave are provided for people who need to flee violence. The Schools Act has been amended. Intimate images, bail supervision, just to name a few. But the big news here today, we've just signed off, and it's actually an announcement made by our federal minister, Marcy Ian, at the most recent federal provincial territorial meeting, which happened just last month. And it's a 10-year plan. It's an action plan. It's a national action plan that focuses on doing just that, eradicating gender-based violence, and it's based on 5 pillars. So it's over $500 million that will be dispersed across our country for the next 5 years. Pillar 1 focuses on support for survivors and their families. Pillar 2 is prevention measures. Pillar 3, promotion and responsive legal and justice systems. Pillar 4 focuses on support for Indigenous-led approaches and informed responses. And Pillar 5, Tim, is social infrastructure and enabling environment. And on that note, about engagement, I actually met with Michelle Green. She happens to be one of the members on my board for the Provincial Advisory Council for the Status of Women. She made these problems, of course, and these concerns aware to me, and I immediately facilitated a meeting between her and Minister Abbott. And today I'm actually just waiting to board a plane. I'm traveling to Happy Valley Goose Bay to meet with the Indigenous women, across Newfoundland and Labrador. We meet annually, and that's to talk about the calls to justice that came out of the national inquiry for murdered missing women, Indigenous, and girls. So it's all about engagement. It's all about working with our community partners. So I just wanted to come on and provide those updates to you today, Tim, and as well as your listeners.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. Those are important updates, and I'm still struck by something Michelle said, and it's certainly something you live in your current ministerial role and would have encountered in your previous life as a journalist and as an MHA. The attention is on this now because of the Purple Ribbon campaign, because of the news stories around the capacity challenges at Irish Kirby House and O'Shaughnessy House. And this is not a criticism of your government, because it would be applicable to any government. It's just a question, and it's a tough one, but I'll give you about a minute to answer it, is how do we move this up the policy priority chain, and that this is proper investment in the prevention and management of domestic violence? And by management, I mean creating enough transition space for us. So you talked about the prevention side of it. Can you just give me a quick thought on that important issue before I break for the news?
Well, it's all about support, and the onus is on each and every level of government, municipal, provincial, as well as federal. And I think that's where it's announcements like these. It's $500 million over the next 5 years. It's a 10-year plan. I mean, ultimately, we need supports from our federal government, and it's about meeting on the ground. Like, I'm joining the Premier today, the Minister for Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation, as well as the Minister for Children, Senior, Social Development, and officials from Justice. We are all meeting today, actually later on in Labrador this week, to talk about these precise matters and concerns about violence. It comes down to education. We can throw so much money at prevention, but ultimately it's systemic and attitude change. And that said too, and this is something that Minister Haggie can probably elaborate on, education, the new sharing and caring schools initiatives now that we're seeing in our curriculum, and that aims at teaching young children at the grassroots about healthy consensual relationships. And that's what it's about. And it's about calling it out. It's about, of course, resources for the front lines, but it's a collaboration of all of these things working together. And again, it's going to take everybody pulling on the same oar. I mean, I get it. It's some of us have a job to criticize, but I welcome those to come and, roll up their sleeves, join the table in solution finding, because that's what it's all about.
All right, I'll leave it there. Good luck in Labrador, particularly as you highlight the violence against Indigenous women, as particularly highlighted in that missing and murdered Indigenous women inquiry was significant and it's quite pronounced. I need to take a break, though. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.